Back in the prehistoric era of 1998, a small startup games company, founded by some former Microsoft employees and containing the talent of amateur programmers, artists, and a few modders, released their first game, Half-Life. It was a pretty big success at the time and received a lot of praise, but this wasn't just a good game, it was the start of something massive. A game that would spark an entire community and culture spanning 2 decades after its release. What made Half-Life so good isn't my focus for today. Many other people have gone at length to explain all the elements in Half-Life that have shaped gaming as a whole. I'm not here to repeat what everyone else already knows. What I do want to talk about is Half-Life's community, how this release created a ripple effect that resulted in so many other games and so many memories for so many people. Not the ripple that Half-Life sent through the FPS genre in gaming, no. I'm talking about Half-Life's community and what they have been doing all these years. And to start, I think we need to repeat a familiar story. Not too long after Half-Life was released, people very quickly got to tearing it apart and modifying the game. This wasn't too common for the time. Many other games like Quake and World of Warcraft got their fair share of mods, but what made Half-Life different was what these mods became. Many of Valve's earlier titles were just mods for Half-Life. Games like Counter-Strike, Day of Defeat, and even Ricochet were all mods. And there are hundreds more of unofficial mods for just this one small game, so even in these earlier years, Half-Life had a pretty big following. This kept people going basically until Valve, after many delays, released Half-Life 2 on the brand new Source engine. This was an amazing sequel and considered to be a perfect video game by some, so yeah, it was pretty well received. Half-Life 2 not only had better AI, better scripted sequences, and better graphics, it even had a revolutionary physics engine that still somehow manages to put modern games to shame. Other titles in Valve's library also got installments on this engine, like Counter-Strike, Team Fortress, and Day of Defeat. All games that were already fun but now had the bonus of looking pretty amazing for the time. This, along with Half-Life 2 being able to be modded, resulted in even more mods becoming games, like the Stanley Parable, Black Mesa, and Portal, if you really think about it. If you know anything about Portal, you know it was made by a bunch of university students, so when they went to make Portal, they had to use a lot of Half-Life 2 assets, code, etc. So Portal is basically a Half-Life mod. But there was one Half-Life 2 mod that may have impacted more people than every other game in Valve's catalog. A little modification that allowed you to mess with this new revolutionary game engine like no other. A mod made by a fella named Garry. Garry's Mod is a game that needs no introduction. Anyone that is at least somewhat interested in video games will know what this game is. You see, when Gmod was first started and growing, another thing was developing alongside it, the internet. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s when Half-Life and Valve were new, the internet sucked. It was slow and not easy to use as it was new technology, and just overall didn't serve too much purpose for your average Joe. But the years following Half-Life 2's release, the internet was starting to be used by literally everyone, and a lot of people were spending a lot of time on it. So more people to play Garry's Mod and more people to talk about Gmod. But more importantly, more people to make stuff in Garry's Mod. One of the most popular sites back in the late 2000s and early 2010s was YouTube, a website where you could publish videos for others to watch. And for some reason, people really liked it when someone would go and make a movie within a video game. They just ate it up. These video game movies were called machinimas, and they were pretty amateur. A good example of a machinima is that funny Halo Red vs. Blue show. That's a machinima. And while Halo had barely any tools to make these, Gmod had something that every good internet film needs. Animation. Or sorta animation. You could, with a lot of patience, move ragdolls in a way that could resemble realistic movement, either using stop motion, puppeting, or a mod designed for animation. Either way, people back in the day cobbled together somewhat convincing looking character movement, though mostly overshadowed by that Source engine janky charm. The bulk of machinimas made in Gmod were short skits that reflected the humor of the time, but theoretically you could make an entire movie. Oh my god. This is War of the Servers. a movie made inside Gmod. It's a parody of War of the Worlds, but still for the most part takes itself very seriously. Despite being made inside Gmod in the free time of many people, this film is somehow really good. Its voice acting is okay, but the visuals are great and the pacing is better than your average Marvel film. If you have a spare hour or so and are willing to humor a film made in Gmod, I highly recommend you give this a watch. But besides that, most early Gmod and Source Engine films were just goofy videos with the occasional serious machinima. And this scene exploded even more when Valve gave people access to Source Filmmaker, an animation program made by Valve to produce these funny short films promoting the game Team Fortress 2. With this new software, people could make even more stupid and amazing videos for everyone to watch. This animation program also just straight up uses the Source Engine, so everything still looked a lot like those earlier Gmod videos. These videos were also getting a lot of views, and the Source Engine was becoming a permanent mainstream part of YouTube, not just with animations and short videos, but also with Let's Plays as well. Many people grew up watching channels like Vanoss Gaming and Venturian Tale, channels that basically revolved around messing around in the game. But people were also making videos on Valve's other titles. Valve's multiplayer games specifically had grown to be fairly popular. Counter-Strike was known for being very tactical and competitive, and TF2 was known for being very goofy and fun. Many YouTubers would make channels dedicated to just these games, and they all had mods of their own, along with the constant updates Valve would put out for years to come. The Source Engine had a lot of content, enough to last another decade. Fast forward roughly 10 years and people are still talking about the Source Engine and making things just as they did years ago. Except it's not as many people as before. Inevitably, every trend in every game is going to fall out of the public eye, and aside from a few exceptions, Valve's titles had grown to be more of a niche, and Valve, eventually mostly due to inventing an infinite money printer, had stopped making new titles, and even ceased maintaining some of their own titles. But even with all that happening, people still make things just as good as they did back in the day. Emus Is Blue came out a while ago, and it's another full-length movie that is really well made. And it's all made in SFM, a tool that is 10 years old at this point. People still make amazing mods for Half-Life 2, like the recent Entropy Zero, so what's the big deal? Well, like I mentioned earlier, for the most part, Source Engine games have become a niche, and for some reason here on YouTube, niches create a lot of views. So even in these last couple of years, people have been able to start channels just dedicated to games like Team Fortress 2 and Half-Life. But at this point, the content well has dried up. People were talking about these games 10 years ago, so you have to dig pretty deep to talk about them now. If you want to run a successful channel, that is. That's not to say that all the videos about the Source Engine made in the last 5 years were scraping the bottom of the barrel. Many of them have new ideas and present new and interesting things to the viewer, but some videos just don't serve too much purpose. This is mostly a larger trend with video essays such as this one, but many people are taking these old games, taking one aspect of them, and then yapping about it for 20 minutes. And it makes sense. None of these franchises have new content, so if you want to watch videos about these games, you're probably okay watching a video about Half-Life's unreleased skyboxes, or Team Fortress 2's fake doors, or whatever the hell else you can squeeze out of these old games. If you like watching those videos, that's fine. And if the content creator likes making them, that's also fine. But to me, for the most part, it seems we've just ran out of content for a while, and it's kinda just making me sick of the Source Engine stuff. These communities just seemed obsessed with overanalyzing these games to ridiculous degrees. A good example of this is when recently a lot of people got together to complain to Valve, who had for years ignored a massive cheating issue in the game Team Fortress. This movement went pretty well. Big page, lots of signatures, a bit of attention, overall a good movement. But during it I was banging my head against the wall because for some reason instead of going out and spreading the word on social media, people were stuck discussing how to improve the movement and how to go about doing it. What was gonna work and what wasn't. This makes sense. A big organized push to get any large company to do anything is hard on its own. It needs to be planned carefully. But it got so nuanced it was driving me crazy. People argued over review bombing the game. People argued over buying items in the game. People even argued over playing it. And it all bled into more commentary video essay type videos all responding to each other and just making a mess out of what was supposed to be a step forward. It was ridiculous. I've seen some crazy communities. I've seen people break down down frames of cartoons to discuss every minute detail. I've seen people argue over game mechanics like no tomorrow, but no community is as constantly stuck in the mud as this one. I'm just sick of it, and I'm not the only one. Over the years, many people have quit making content on these games, and I don't blame them. It's a hard transition to make, but being stuck making content on the same games forever sounds like hell, and it makes sense to stop. I 100% encourage it. I think a lot of people are just afraid of losing views, so they continue to make the same videos day after day. It's not specific to the Source Engine community, it's just the grind, but it's not good. Variety is always going to be more stable, and I always appreciate it more. And I think other people should too. When your favorite YouTuber uploads a game that isn't your favorite niche game, give the video a chance anyway. It will probably still be a funny and informative video just like the others. And if you're thinking about making animations, use Blender, not SFM. SFM's so broken. You can still port the models over. Basically, I've been trying to remove myself from the Source Engine, and I've been trying to branch out. Well, I've always been doing that. But I think it's good to look for more games and more tools and to seek inspiration for whatever projects you have elsewhere. But ultimately, do whatever you enjoy doing, even if it is trying to figure out what kind of train is parked at 2 Ford. Thank you for watching. Hey everyone, this is a little section after, unscripted section after the video. This was kind of a rant because I wanted, I'm working on other stuff actually, but I was like, man, I gotta upload something, so I had this idea and I thought I'd put it out there, just like a little thing here, but yeah, most of the frustration here comes from, this video that I have being so popular. It's kind of annoying to look at, It's like, spent 5 minutes on this, and it got like, I don't know how many thousand views or whatever, but it was just an overall, like, annoyed at the just the Source Engine stuff. I'm tired of seeing just like slop in my feed and stuff, I'm tired of it. And I know it won't stop. This video isn't going to change anything, but I figured I'd mention it at least, get it off my chest, I guess. You can agree with me, you don't have to. Leave a comment. I don't know how many I'm going to be reading because I'm not that invested in this topic. I was just like, man, what is going on? Anyway, I hope you all have a good day. Goodbye.